welcome to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. Okay, extra long pause. Wow. I am your host, Roddykat, and you can find me at Roddykats on Twitter, News Nerds Need on Twitter, and CBCaps on Instagram. And I've actually updated it, so there's a couple of things up there for your perusals. And with me tonight, as always, is the man, the myth, the legend, our man in Brooklyn, representing BK to the fullest every day, all day, Agent_70.
What's up, everybody, on Twitter and Instagram?
On Twitter.
Where Brooklyn at? Where Brooklyn at? Where Brooklyn at?
Sorry about that.
All right.
Rocking a nice Stella tonight.
Yes, sir.
Man, give me some more Stella. I hadn't had it in a while. Anyway, you can find this here podcast on the Coastal of the Podcast Network, that's CSPN.us.
Do it today.
You can also find it at your podcast perusal place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Coastal of the Podcast Network's SoundCloud page. And folks, we oh Lord, I did not mean to say that, so just strike that one. But we are here tonight to talk about comic books. What happened to you? Was that? And we're going to start off with, well, folks, we've come down to the wire on the Empyre stuff, but we're going to start off with Fantastic Four number 23.
Right. This is actually something that we definitely recommend that you read if you are keeping up with Empyre. You read this issue, Fantastic Four number 23, before you get to Empyre number 6, because it will make eminently more sense.
Yep.
Than it would if you read Empyre number 6 first before getting to this crossover issue in FF23. Yeah. So, pardon me. You know, we find ourselves tagging along with the replacement FF, consisting of Wolverine, Spider-Man, Franklin and Valeria Richards. They have their own little side mission because of machinations that have been put into place by Koi and the Priest of Palma, kind of as a side quest. You know, it's kind of a side mission that essentially has been kind of secret until now. We don't really see the effects of this, or we don't really understand the impact that this particular side mission might have on the greater story of Empyre until we read this issue, and then until we read Empyre number 6. It's kind of interesting that this had been teased at and hinted at, but we really didn't understand the scope of it until we got to this issue. Right. In terms of the use of the Omniwave projector.
Right, and it makes sense considering we know that Al Ewing and Dan Slott, who's writing FF, are the ones that are crafting the Empyre story. So, you know, going in it with that, it was like, okay, sure, that makes a whole lot of sense, because FS over there is doing this little side thing, which kind of plays into what's going to happen in the passage, which we'll get into, because, you know, they're scripting. They're both scripting it together.
I would always say that, you know, just very quickly going through my notes, you know, those two kids at the beginning of the Empyre story in the FF one shot at the beginning of Empyre proved to be the sources for the last chapter, you know, for now of this long war. There's actually a twist on the use of the Omniwave projector that was at the center of the original Kree-Skrull War story that we reviewed earlier during the pandemic.
Yes, and you can go back and watch that episode where we talk about the Kree-Skrull War a couple of months ago at this point.
Sure, and I'm honestly very appreciative of the fact that we did that. Mm-hmm. It made a big difference. I mean, it was something that we had considered doing prior to the pandemic really, you know, forcing us all to stay home for a long time. But ultimately, knowing that this was going to be that the Kree Skrull War stories, and and their progeny were going to be the basis for this Empyre story, did lead us to want to do it, but pandemic gave us the time, and you know, talk about small blessings, right?
Yeah. And I say it again, I kind of still miss some of that because, I mean, I'm glad we're getting new comic books again, but it's like some going through some of those old events have been, whether we've read them in the past and refreshing ourselves or just hadn't read them at all, like some of them, it's been refreshing.
Sure.
But back to Fantastic Four 23. So yeah, the Priest of Trauma got a hold of the kids, or one of the kids, used that said kid to, which was the Kree kid dude, Joe Vin.
Yeah.
They got them. So the backup FF went to go find him because it was the Franklin and Valeria's job to kind of keep them safe, which in their eyes they kind of botched it up until the end of this issue, but it was still worked out. But the other kid whose name is Nakala, I believe.
Kala, yeah.
Yeah. Um, who got hurt by Wolverine in the last issue went after him because they are linked in their, they're linked. I will say that. Some would say that there might be a budding romance there, which will more than likely could play out in the future. Who even knows? But they're still kids at this point. Went to go find him, even though she was still hurt, and the backup FF kind of picked up on that, and then found everybody involved in saving the day. Well, not helping to save the day. Actually, it was Franklin and Valeria saving the day by using the same method that Coy and the Priest of Palmer was doing with the Omniwave projector, which was a nice touch. It was like, well, since we're already in here and they're being used for that, let's turn this around. And that ended up saving the day, and also, like I said, keep this in mind going into Empire #6. So they saved the kids, and and everything. Right. Also worth noting that the Omniwave projector is still in play because they didn't destroy it. So either it's probably going to be another trinket of from the FF, and it's going to be at on Yancey Street, or something's going to happen in one of these two, or one of the three, probably two, because I doubt it's going to be in the She-Hulk one, but one of the two prologue issues that are coming up probably next week or so. But if not, then it's just going to be on the shelf for some later use, possibly. But yeah, that's Fantastic Four number 23. I don't unless you have something else that I can't remember from that one.
I'm going to add that you have to give Slott a lot of credit for keeping things light.
Yeah.
In his FF chapters of the Empyre story, there are definitely really heavy notes in the Empyre crossover itself and Empyre limited series proper, but in Slott's scripted stories in the Fantastic Four, there's lots of little, just very much Dan Slott notes. Everything from the Spidey banter, which you still enjoy reading it. Even though Slott hasn't written Spidey in a while now, it's still fun to Nkala warning Wolverine to be very careful with his claws because she's already been stuck by them and put into the hospital, basically put into hospital care because of them. So it's pretty amusing to read. So and they're off to apparently Disney World after this. No pandemic in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, clearly, just a bunch of weeds that are still potentially around after it's said and done. But like again, we're about to get that in a second. Yeah, the only other thing I was like, yeah, I noticed that so yeah, there's a part of this that hasn't come clear yet, and I imagine that's going to either happen in the prologue, in the aftermath issue, or that's something Slott's going to play with going forward. Because in Kala knew of Alicia, from when they met, but Alicia doesn't know who. I'm assuming it's going to come back to the fact that it was Leela as a Skrull. I'm going to assume.
Probably.
But we don't know that yet because, like I said, there's still that little thing that's kind of still up in the air also. But that's probably, again, that's a story either for the aftermath or some other time.
Right. That makes the most sense in terms of like the connection that the Skrull would have with Alicia Masters. So
Right. And Johnny Scroll married Leela, thinking it was Alicia. Anyway, that's beside the point. Fantasy 423, catch it. So now we can go on to.
and as we said, read it before you get to Empire #6.
Definitely. We're going to get to Empire #6, which, folks, this all come down to this, with the exception of the 3 aftermath issues that are coming after this. It was a good action-packed story. I feel like this one, like you was kind of saying about Fantasy 4, it also felt like it was kept kind of quote-unquote light-ish. Like, yeah, it had plenty of action, but it kind of, it kind of ended like you expected it was. Like, I was expecting some big shock, especially after reading Guardians. But then again, like I said, the aftermath issues are probably going to be ones to kind of bear some of that out. But in this issue, hey, guess what, folks? Right off the bat, T'Challa's not dead. He did a T'Challa thing, which some would probably consider a Batman thing, but whatever. And he's still alive. Matter of fact, he had a good turn and saved the day. So I was kind of worried about that part, giving recent news.
Right. Right. A little too on the nose. It would be too much of a coincidence.
Right, because I even said after, and we'll get to that news later in the news section, but I was like, oh, that's going to be a bad look if they actually, now granted, they didn't know, because it was, it's coincidental that things happened the way they happened.
I was going to say, this was written months before any of that happened.
Exactly, yeah. So there was no way to know, but the timing was still bad enough, would have been bad enough if that had been the case. And I'd have been pissed anyway if they'd actually killed him. So we had already dispersed that. But regardless, this is pretty much the culmination of everything that's been going on, and including everything that happened in FF23. Because as you will see if you plan on reading this, the events of Fantasy 4 #23 are pretty much coinciding with what is going on elsewhere. Because you will see, panels and pages of stuff from FF23 going on, as things going on. So the Omni Wave projector is in play. That whole thing's going off, and we see battles being taken place, in a couple of different places, in a couple of big places. The Alliance throne room of one with Arkhill and Teddy and folks, and then of course we start off with Fantastic Four. Reed Richards and Tony Stark kind of talking and be like, well, hey, we're just laying this out,
Right. For anyone who hasn't been reading the first 5 issues of this limited series,
exactly.
Here's what happened in the first 5 issues and all of the several tie-in issues.
Exactly. And mind you, all of this and everything that they're supposed to be doing in this issue supposedly is being done in less than 8 minutes.
Right. So I would just say, before we move on to the next stage where these plans are put into motion, there is a nice little Marvel Cinematic Universe Easter egg in here where Reed is trying to figure out if Tony has his head screwed on straight. And, and obviously,
and also just classic Iron Man period, if this is the part you think about.
Right, but what I was going to mention is that given Marvel's elastic timeline, right, we don't necessarily get, these characters don't necessarily get the benefit of all of their collective experiences. They may see, we may get some of it here and there, but we don't necessarily see these characters get the benefit of having all of their collective experiences to draw upon. Be like, how many times have they worked together before? You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but in the sense that Tony's maybe doesn't have a complete handle on things, Reed is questioning whether or not Tony's all there. And the reference is, Tony says, "You see, I'm lost. I'm right here in a cave with scraps." So and obviously you can't help but read that in Jeff Bridges' voice. So it's a pretty cool little callback to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Right. This is right before they put their plan in motion.
Right. And actually, there was something else about the little talk. It was like, yeah, okay. So basically, Reed laying out the plan, which was like, hey, the sun's going over in like 9 minutes, and then this other stuff's going on with the Kotati that was supposed to be happening in
The
10 minutes.
vibranium mound, yeah, the
Yeah,
whatchamacallit.
yeah,
The
exactly. The
vibranium-
Death Blossoms,
Yeah.
not unlike, well, not like the last Starfighter, but yeah. So all this is supposed to be happening in pretty much less than 10 minutes, and then, like I said, on top of that, reading Tony's talk, which was probably another minute or two before they put their plan in action, which involves one part that them splitting up and Tony taking care of what's going on with the sun, which is one part of the thing that was going to blow up, and Reed in uh, an Iron Man like suit, going to take care of going to deal with what's going on the ground in Wakanda. So, and we're not gonna spoil what happens, but basically there's a couple of good action moments, but not a whole lot of fighting. Like, we see the kind of the fighting that's been going on, around the places. We definitely get a moment that we probably would have seen from Thor, if that miniseries had actually, come out. Because I suspect what happens with Thor would have come from there. Because we found out that Thor has a power set upgrade. Let's just say. From another, I guess, let's just say from the pantheon of gods, put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
That bears into play. If you think about the Kotati and the plant life, and you think about anybody of Greek mythology who would be anything around that, then yeah, you're on the right track. So there's that, and then there's what T'Challa does, with, fighting off swordsmen, the swordsman Kotati, and the swordsman Kotati, you know, taking his turn, you know, to being the baddie behind the baddie, and all of that just kind of culmination into the end of the story. It works out pretty good, but I feel like it was kind of, it weirdly felt kind of neat, you know. Like I said, it was good and everything, and like I said, with all the Fantastic Four stuff playing into it, going side by side, and you seeing all that going off, and they dealt with the She-Hulk situation. She's not dead, but they dealt with that part, and everything coming together, and Reed saying Avengers Assemble, and everything actually starting to come together from the other miniseries after that. Almost
Right.
kind of like they tried to, like they did with Secret Wars, but obviously we saw a lot more of that stuff if you read a lot more of those a lot more of those miniseries that came out, which
Well,
a
they
lot
did publish the ones that the ones that got canceled. So.
that's what I'm saying. So it was like, so you see a whole bunch of other people, which some of us we did see, because there are at least a couple of them that did come out, but like I said, the Thor stuff didn't come out, and then the other whatever other ones that they didn't publish didn't, but we just see a whole combination of other heroes and under the Avengers flag, and then we see the people out in the sun trying to do that, and they get help, and it was like Johnny Storm and Captain Marvel and was it ended up being Super Scroll and a couple other people dealing with the sun, and then Tony doing what he did with, as I say in my notes, unstable molecules saved the day.
Ah, that's right.
Which I was like, that's kind of funny, because back in the classically, unstable molecules did a whole lot of things, not including clothing, obviously, because that was kind of the main thing that they were being used for. But yeah, we found there was a new application of unstable molecules that ended up saving the day and helping keep the sun from exploding. Which I was like, huh, interesting. I didn't think that was going to be a thing that they was going to play with, but yeah, there we go.
I mean, it's definitely a callback to just old school Marvel science.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a nice little twist on old school Marvel science. So it was a little bit more of utilizing both Reed and Tony, not necessarily for their powers,
Right.
but for their know-how and their intellect. So
Right. Actually, yeah, they were basically, combining their own intellect with each other's power set.
mm-hmm.
So in a way, wherein while Reed does tend to get in action, with the Fantastic Four and all that kind of stuff, but him with some uh, uh, a version of Iron Man armor, which I'm hoping he keeps around just in case there's another symbiote. Because like, wait, why they haven't done that before? Like when a symbiote outbreak happens.
I'm gonna teleport them to the sun.
Well, not even just that, but it's like because Reed's armor was more sound based than Iron Man's normally,
Right.
even though he has the capabilities of doing that. You know, I'm like, well, shoot, like where was this when like, there's
When all
been
the
any
symbiotes
number
are
of
running.
there's been
Yeah.
any number of symbiote outbreaks, and that could have been a thing that happened. So,
Right. They usually put it into a sonic gun
exactly.
that Ben or Spidey are running around with. So
Exactly. So I just kind of had that thought like at that part, but I was like, all right, it was a good use of that. That was pretty cool. And then again, like I said, Tony doing what he was doing with the unstable molecules and whatnot, helping out what was going on with the sun, and that's and it all coming together at the end. And spoiler alert, hey, the Qatari invasion has been routed.
essentially, yeah. Just just as a quick wrap, we get the immortal She-Hulk actually coming to the fore.
Mm-hmm.
The treachery from Hulkling's grandmother is thwarted, and Koi is defeated by the combined might of the Avengers, Fantastic Four, and the world's militaries. So, we will see Koi is not taken off the board. Interestingly enough, he's still going to be around.
Right. He's in custody. He's just they didn't kill him. Um,
Right?
However,
They did.
I'm
Yeah, I was gonna say, they did whack the Kotati running around
yeah, I
as
was about
Jacques
to say.
Dupin, the sword,
Right,
the
and
swords.
that's
So.
exactly, and that's what I was saying about T'Challa's turn in this one because he had a pretty good action moment with that whole thing. Um, which is worth a read. So I'm not gonna like I said necessarily spoil what happens, but it was a pretty good one.
Yeah, no,
But
it was a lot of fun. I really I'm just to wrap the conversation on this. Um, I've mentioned this before. I feel like people have been sleeping on this miniseries,
hmm,
underestimating it, and I feel like they shouldn't. I think this is something that is well worth reading,
mm-hmm.
and this is something that people should go back and read if they didn't pull it or read it as during quarantine.
Yeah, I mean, being honest, as you and I both know, event fatigue is real. So sometimes it's just kind of I don't know, if that was the case here for those people, but like event fatigue is real, and it's like it's just another big event, yada yada yada. But it definitely ended up being a a good event, a solid enough event. Let's put it that way
Sure.
to be worth a read. Now, it's supposedly more going to be impactful throughout the Marvel Universe going forward, but we still haven't gotten to that part yet.
Right. Well, some of that is teased in Guardians this week.
Right. So, which I guess, to round us out, and I'm sure, it's like the aftermath issues and what they're teasing Guardians and what the prospect of, because even in Empire 6, they at the end it was like, yeah, well, we're now we're in the era of we're in a new era of space, and it's pretty much centering around the Earth somehow, and
Right.
with
It centers around Earth, right? It centers around the Earth in that, and this is mild spoilers, but since we know that the Empire aftermath issues are coming out, I believe next week.
I believe so.
Whatchamacallit, the new Emperor of the Kree Skrull combined whatchamacallit, kingdoms basically
Yeah, alliance.
are, well, no, but they're combined, no, but they're combined kingdoms, right? There was like the Skrull Empire and the Kree Empire. I guess they're combined empires,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
They're all united under one Earthling, in a sense. A half Skrull, half Kree, but raised on Earth.
Right.
So that's what essentially puts the Earth at the center of this, united empire.
Mm-hmm.
And as we said, we'll see how this all plays out in the aftermath issues.
Yep. But first, we're going to get a nice little tease in the form of Guardians of the Galaxy number 6, uh, which has nothing to do with Empire, with the exception of them catching up with it at the end. So I guess I'll go ahead and went ahead and spoil that one. But the crux of the issue. Well, actually, you know what? You take this one because I know
Sure.
I know you were very.
Well, my analysis of this issue really hinged upon the fact that it reminded me at least,
Mhm.
of something, of an event that happened just prior to, what was it, like late last year,
Sounds
just
right.
prior to the new year, something like that.
Yeah, Heroes in Crisis. That sounds right.
Right.
Sure.
Heroes in Crisis from DC. This issue is essentially how Heroes in Crisis should have gone. Shots fired.
And to be fair, it kind of did. It just went off on something that no one expected and probably really wanted, which was disappointing. But
Right, right. In terms of Heroes in Crisis, but
right.
this issue really dealt with, and I'm only mildly spoiling this in the sense that by comparing it to what Heroes in Crisis should have been, we already know, if you're familiar enough with that story, we already know that this involves a session uh, of therapy between one Richard, between a character, it deals with a mental health session, a therapy session for one character at least, and in this case, it's Richard Rider, the Nova Prime of the Marvel Universe, and he is getting some therapy to try to deal with all the stuff that has happened to him since the Annihilation War, and I know that I have complained endlessly, it seems like, about how Marvel has treated Richard Rider since Annihilation. And I finally got Roddykat to read Annihilation so that he could understand my point. And
Which
I
is
know that
actually,
he at least understands somewhat where I'm coming from.
eh,
Uh,
yeah,
you
I
know,
do.
disappointment.
I'm not as big a Nova fan as Agent 70 is, but yes, I do.
Right. But at the same time, he understands, Roddykat understands where I'm coming from when I complain that you have a character that seemed to have matured a great deal, a great amount during Annihilation. This is after all of the adventures that he's had as a solo hero and as a member of the New Warriors, and we get a little bit of that during the first couple of flashback pages of Guardians as he's talking about, as he's kind of relaying one of the things that troubles him, one of the things that has come from his past that continues to weigh upon him heavily. And he's recounting this to the therapist, and it does, unfortunately, all go back to a lack of good parenting on the part of the senior writer, Mr. Writer.
Yeah.
And we get a little bit of a flashback to um, how the last adventure with the dueling guardians ends. We see this in flashback. We also see in flashback that apparently Hercules, and spoiler alert, Hercules
Marvel
and
boy.
Marvel Boy are a thing now.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough,
Cause why
and
not?
apparently, oh, go ahead.
No, I just said cause why not?
Right. And no, and apparently Richard Rider confirms that the blonde one with the muscles, that guy's an idiot.
Oh yeah, the Prince of Power. Yeah.
Right. I really got a kick out of that. I was like, yeah, thank goodness someone acknowledged this. And obviously, we still don't know where this particular character came from. We all have our suspicions with regards to Hercules, but basically throughout this issue, we have uh, Nova recounting some of the things that have come up since Annihilation and since this last adventure, and his most recent sit down talk with Gamora. Someone who he was intimately involved with during Annihilation, but has since she's since gone off to be with Peter Quill, and they basically have a tete-a-tete with regards to Peter Quill
Hmm.
as part of as part of this discussion. Um, and ultimately um, we get the ending of this first therapy session, and hopefully, this is Richard Rider continuing down the road with therapy to try to get better. At the end of the issue, we get what we hinted at earlier,
Right.
which
Well,
is
before you get that, before you go to that point, let me just say that one, we did do an episode or two on Annihilation. You can go back and check that out, where we
yes,
ran through the Annihilation event and probably talked about some of that stuff. Not some of that stuff, because obviously that was before this happened, but also that some of the stuff that Richard Rider brought up during this session, especially with the stuff with Gamora, had to do with not only, spoiler alert, the beginning of this arc where Peter Quill died, but also going back to, like Agent 70 said, was alluding to, going back to previous volumes of Guardians of the Galaxy, where um, uh, Richard Rider comes out of the Cancerverse, and Peter and him talk, and a conversation they presumably had around that time.
right.
Uh, and like I said, yeah, and the stuff with Kimura, whenever that was supposed to be timed going into, the rounding out the session of this, but yeah, mostly because, like I said, just go back and watch, if you feel like it, watch the Annihilation episodes, or read Annihilation. It's pretty good. And now you can go ahead and continue what you're
No,
saying.
I was just going to say that what we hinted at earlier was that Guardians of the Galaxy catches up to what has been happening in Empire
Hmm.
at the end of this issue.
Yeah, that's pretty much that. Yeah, because it's kind of funny. It was like the way they did it was like, it's just Rocket, like Richard Rider leaving a session, and then gets a call from Rocket, and it was like, hey, you might want to check and see what's going on with Earth, because you're not gonna believe this. And then they do a space search, and then they get caught up with it, and then it's like, oh my god, I don't believe this. What does this mean? What are we gonna do after this is really, really big, but we don't necessarily know what this big thing is, because we thought, well, I read this before. Did I read? Yeah, I did. I read this before I read Fantastic Four in Empire, not
Okay.
knowing that they were going to catch up that fast with Empire. So when I saw that, I was like, and matter of fact, I even said it in my notes. So I said, all right, fine, I'll read Empire #6, because usually, just a little bit behind the scenes, like sometimes depending on the event, I'm like, okay, I got to see what's going on now. But I was like, let me go ahead and get some of these other stuff out of the way before I read that. And then just so happened that Guardians happened to hook into it and unexpectedly, and I was like, all right, fine, let me do this. So then I read Fantastic Four and Empire, but we did not get the revelation of what this big thing is fully. Anyway, like I said, the aftermath issues are probably going to bear some of that out, but we got to where we definitely got the hints of it, the shades of it in Empire #6, with what happened at the end, with what was brought up at the end.
Sure. So, ultimately, it was kind of cool that basically in a few panels, Guardians is caught up on what's going on in Empire.
Mm-hmm.
What basically took place over the course of maybe a week in Earth time.
Right, which normally, if sometimes normally when events, depending on events and depending on how everything's laid out and the scope that it takes in the universe, it usually takes an issue or two before the rest of, or at least other places, start to catch up, and especially if it's a line wide event.
Hmm.
Sometimes it takes like an issue or two for you know books to kind of catch up with what's going on, if even whether it acknowledges or not.
Right.
But this one is like, but I guess, and possibly because of COVID, or this was already something that was already laid out. Like, Guardian 6 was just like, yeah, no, here we are. We're here after this. Which makes sense, because Guardians of the Galaxy is out in space. So therefore, a lot of that stuff would probably reverberate there faster, despite the fact that them being nowhere near Earth, you know, things would reverberate a little faster than it would if everything was just Earth based, engine bearing out.
Right. Okay.
So, but yeah, we'll see. Again, we will see what's going to happen with those aftermath issues, and what's going to be the big play at the end of all of this from Empyre, from what outside of what we kind of already know from what was already said.
Right. All right. As
And with
President
that,
Bart would ask.
What's next?
let me see what you read because I suspect that yes, you know where I'm going next. Cable number 4.
That's funny.
It's like he didn't actually know where I was
All
going.
right.
But
So we wrap up this little opening story arc that has taken young Cable, on a very strange path to Ten of Swords, X of Swords. Just very quickly, and this kind of, I'm kind of disappointed because the cover teases Attack of the Space Knights, but unfortunately, spoiler alert, mild spoiler alert here. I'll ring the bell. The Space Knights, or their Ronin, essentially Space Knights who never got the message about Earth from Rom and Starshine, meet their demise at the end of an atomic blast. And young Cable realizes that old Cable knew this was going to happen.
right, and not only that, but these were Space Knights who were not necessarily. These were people that were drafted. Let's just say these are not people who were for the cause. Because even as it says in this book, so it's like, yeah, they took criminals' brains, put them into robotic bodies, and with the with the caveat that, hey, you do service for us, and we will give you back your body. But since Galador exploded, that's probably wasn't going to happen. And some folks were like, well, we're just going to leave. And then a couple, which is the crux of the 3 that at the head of this, were like, we're going to get revenge and we're going to start something new and we're going to do what we're doing. So basically we just get their motivations for why they need the sword and why they were potentially were going to try to take over Earth through this. But yeah, so, and we also find out, which is, I think is slightly bigger, but as I say in my notes real quick, this issue is the issue that Agent 70, jokingly, this issue is the issue that Agent 70 has been waiting for a cover to the cover, but it didn't actually happen like that.
Nope, not at all.
So, but now we fold over into basically young Cable thwarting their plans, and we also get supposedly the reason why old Cable didn't escape his death, but he actually kind of did, as we come to find out. Old Cable did not escape his death at the hands of young Cable, and of course it has to do with time travel, because of course it does, where Cable is concerned. But I was like, okay, that's reasonable. But old Cable, apparently knowing this or figuring this out, had a contingency plan, as he tended to do, and that probably explains why we have been seeing old Cable, interspersed in this issue. I'm sure that's going to come back up again now that this is dealt with. Well, partially dealt with, because apparently because of some communique at the end of this, because after Cable and Esme dealt with the Ronin Space Knights, come to find out that there was a data burst that was sent out from one of them that warned what was going on to another Space Knight that was still around. So, but this is probably not the end of it.
Yep. And shout out to Phil Noto, whose art, as always, is so sharp with the faces specifically. His faces are so expressive, so clean and so expressive.
Oh, but I guess there is the one part at the end of this where basically Cable's like, oh, I got to get back to this other investigation thing when he's back at home with the family. And Scott's like, hey, hold up, come eat dinner. You got time. Don't be so. Don't you rush to get old. And he's basically having Cable explain what's going on and that they'll take care of what's going on together, which presumably because of the fact that this is also a Path to X of Ten of Swords tie-in, that this is going to bear out somewhere in there.
Right. Right. And it's funny that this is a full summer's clan dinner, including Havoc. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess Hellions wrapped up okay.
Oh yeah, they did. Yeah, they clearly dealt with, or it just was before that. Who even knows at this point? You know.
That's funny.
But yeah, like I said, it was a good read. This cable, as we've been consistently surprised by this cable book. Oh yeah, and there's also the mention of the Scott. Well, when Scott and Cable was talking, that young Cable mentioned the fact that he met Deadpool, and that was a little funny bit of banter there. But all right, so we're done with that one. You got another movie book up wanna talk about?
About the number one issue that came out this week.
Oh, Black Widow, sure.
Yes. Right. So just in in very brief strokes, we open this story by Kelly Thompson and Elena Casagrande and Jordi Belair. We open this issue with the series with a nice little action sequence with Natasha barefoot of all things, and and she has to make an exit with the help of Hawkeye, but
Except for she
instead finds
didn't.
herself. I'm sorry.
Except she didn't, because that whole sequence was weird. But go ahead and
Well,
finish.
Had Hawkeye's assistance
Right.
because he fired a shot to start, or at least during her sequence to try to, when she's trying to break and enter and obtain something. But Hawkeye's also her means of escape, and Hawkeye basically steps away before Natasha can come out, and Cap, you know, Cap is there just for a little bit of I guess a catch up session. But ultimately, Natasha's on her way home and gets um, how shall we say, and gets Shanghai, gets taken by surprise, gets uh, basically gets attacked as she's trying to make her way into her home, and we find ourselves mysteriously in San Francisco 3 months later. We had originally been in New York, and in San Francisco 3 months later, we have someone who seems to be an architect who strongly resembles Natasha Romanoff, um,
Hmm.
doing kind of a normal, a normal workday, but doing something very, very dangerous in the midst of a skyscraper being built. And ultimately, we find out that she is living a pretty natural, normal life. And the only reason why anyone would have spotted her is because she happened to walk past a television news camera, a television news reporter as she was doing a story, and Hawkeye and the Winter Soldier are trying to figure out what's going on. As you know, Natasha is wont to kind of go off on her own and go off on her own missions and disappear for extended periods of time. So it's not something that they necessarily find out of the ordinary.
Hmm. So this would be the point where I say, so just to fill in a couple of gaps. So, um, so Black Widow's mission going into this, Hawkeye was, as she even says, Hawkeye was kind of none too pleased for her, because this is something that alludes back to a previous volume of Black Widow, if I'm not mistaken. Was it Black Widow, or was it no? Was it? It was either that
No, it was the Hawkeye. Well, no, it was the Winter
the Winter
Soldier
Soldier, the
and
Hawkeye and Winter Soldier, yeah, thing. The Tales of Suspense, I believe that's the one. But because this has kind of come up in a couple of since then. But basically, um, this was back when, and this wasn't environment. This was like sometime like last year or something like that. That like Winter Soldier and Hawkeye went to look for Nat, because she was supposedly dead previously to that, but comes to find out she was alive, but she was just covert. She was just undercover, unlike in this case. But and during the course of that, found out that you know Hawkeye and once they found Natasha, there was some words that Hawkeye was not too pleased with about you know that Natasha pretty much said in relation to himself and Winter Soldier, because basically it was like I vaguely remember it, and it was like, well, why didn't you come to me? It was like, and she was like, yeah, because you're soft and this and that and the other, and blah, blah. And Winter Soldier's like, nah, he's built for this because he's been through the same kind of some similar stuff that I have, and Hawkeye was not too pleased with that, and apparently is still rather upset with going into this. Hence, a couple of things that happened. But that being said, it still wasn't like this. Pretty much was an undercover op that Captain America needed at the last minute, which was pretty much the crux of that. She didn't necessarily need Hawkeye for anything that he that that happened, because basically he shot a door that blew the door. She could have done that. Like she keeps explosives with her. She has a rope line that usually that she keeps. So she could have escaped on her own. So that was just kind of something I assume they're going to they're just addressing from the thing that we just mentioned, more so than that. But yeah, Hawkeye comes to see her on this thing when she seemingly don't have any memory of her former life, but she seems to has her ability still intact as she's going within this new life. But the one other thing that is also of note of this is that we find out that there is somebody behind this thing in a Truman Show type capacity. And of course, who on earth would that be? And none other than one Arcade who shows up, who's been watching Natasha this whole time during his whole life, but is pretty much itching to kill her. So that's pretty much the takeaway from this whole issue. So we're probably going to see Hawkeye and Winter Soldier going after Nat again, through all of this, and Arcade's going to be involved. So we'll see how this all plays out in the coming issues. So we can go on to, unless you got another book you want to.
No, we can do rapid fire. There's a lot of books to get through, so.
Sure, hit it.
Spinning it up. All right, what do you got? Because I think we have mostly the same books.
Yeah, pretty much. You got to come on, but yeah. So New Mutants number 12, real quick. I basically have in my notes that Magic and crew decided to pay a visit to the folks, doxing them, which is the name of the quote unquote news organization is called Dox. Or at least that's what they call themselves anyway. And there's a real world parallel in that the crew pretty much brings up. And I don't know, a little small note for me is like, when did they ever call Megan Braddock Gloriana? But that's just me. And Glob Herman has a moment at the end of that where he just gets fed up and be like, look, y'all keep doing this stuff regardless of what the New Mutants ended up doing in this issue, to try to combat the situation, which basically ends up being that, hey, anytime these folks put out a new story that tells, well, anytime they just put out a news story where they're doxing mutants, they're also doxing themselves, which I thought was a pretty good way to handle that. Like I kind of wish some of that would happen in real life, but it's not the react. But yeah, but Glob Herman gets fed up and threatens the dude in charge and like, look, you keep doing this mess, I'm gonna come back here and kill you myself. I don't care what kind of big hole I'm doing. And then they kind of, get into why Glob was so upset and going through a little bit of his history and all of that mess. But then at the end of this issue, we cut back to Nova Roma, where it seems like Magnus people are not in good shape because of something that happened in a previous issue. Well, something happened because of something that happened in a previous issue that someone retaliated against and pretty much dealt with the people there. So Magma's not going to be too pleased about that probably going into the next issue.
Right.
What's that?
Not being that familiar with all the Nova Roma stuff.
Right.
I just admit to it. But I
mean,
really like the character development that they gave to Glob Herman of all people.
exactly. Yeah, I was like, huh, I was expecting that. And I think even they said it in the book. It was like, no, this is like, who'd have thought that Glob would be the person we'd have to restrain?
Exactly.
Especially when you have a team of like Danny Moonstar, who's usually, for the most part, level headed, but Magic, who would just jump off in a minute,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But yeah, Glob just kind of had his moment. I was like, huh, go ahead. Anyway, Swordmaster number 10. It's been a while since this book came out, so um, I vaguely remember what's going on with it. And he's Len Lai, excuse me, is still looking for his bag for his dad. He and the other girl, Shang Shang, I guess that was her name, end up going to this temple of that her people are residing in, but the place was being under attack. So they tried to help out there, and they end up meeting the chief or the master of the temple, who kind of reminds me of an airbender, a pretty powerful one also. At the end of the issue, so that's actually a pretty decent read. But if you're not caught up on it, it's like you don't. I'm not sure if you necessarily need to get caught up on it to read this, because some of the stuff kind of still is explained, but it's not bad. And that, folks, is it for me.
All right. Let me go through my rapid fire books. Uh, Batman number 98. The antitoxin Harley gave to Batman in the last issue finally does its work, while Harley and Punchline duke it out. Catwoman may eventually be rallying the other members of the Batman Rogues Gallery into taking a side against the Joker. I'm just going to speak in very broad strokes about Bitter Root number 10, because I know that Roddykat just read it, but he's probably going to want to read it carefully again. The threat in Georgia seems to have been stopped for now, while the threat in Harlem remains for the next story arc. Next up is Miles Morales, Spider-Man number 18. I don't think Roddy got to this either.
No, because I believe this is. It said there was an outlawed tie-in. I'm not caught up on that stuff yet.
Right. So I can tell you that without spoiling too much, this is also teased in the last issue. With all the outlawed stuff going on, I did not expect a quote unquote clone Miles Morales and the tester slash evaluator character to return in this issue. So, you can read that and it shouldn't be too spoiled.
Sure.
What happened in the last issue, kind of coming to the fore in this issue.
Sure.
And last for me is Wolverine number 5. It's Wolverine against the vampire outpost in Canada. There is a Dracula-led plot from his home in Siberia, right? You remember that Dracula and the vampires are in Russia now, in Eastern Russia. There's a Dracula-led plot afoot, but it will have to take a back seat until 10 of Swords finishes up, because the next issue of Wolverine jumps straight into 10 of Swords. And that is it for me. So
Clicks
I guess
of the week.
Yep, it's time for Clicks of the Week.
We already have a couple from our absent folks. And it looks like Tim goes with Empyre number 6. I don't know
Correct.
if he made any note about it in our back channel.
Other than he thought it was pretty good.
Okay. And then there is from Dirt, Grendel, Kentucky number 1. I don't know where that is from, but he did put some notes in.
AWA Studios.
Okay. It says
It's,
here, yeah, because he put
it's the one that has Straczynski and Mike Deodato. There's a couple of big name creators at AWA Studios.
Mm-hmm. But but apparently he put some notes in, or unless you did this. But it says, for 2 generations, the rural hill town of Grendel, Kentucky, has honored its Faustian bargain with the monster living in its abandoned coal mine. Human sacrifice every season in return for agrarian prosperity, the likes of which this rocky region has never seen before, including its greatest cash crop, the dankest weed in the land. Okay, I need to see who did this write up. But anyway, who did this flavor text? When One Tornado breaks this pact, Grendel's only hope is that its prodigal daughter will return home to face down the creature of her nightmares and bring her all-female biker gang with her. So, if that sounds appealing to you, Grendel, Kentucky might be for you.
Right. No. PCN underscore dirt sent that to us in the back channel, so I just put that into the sheet.
Gotcha. Ed, do you have yours?
I'm still thinking. I'm definitely leaning towards Empyre number 6 as well, but I did like Guardians of the Galaxy number 6.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I'm still considering. How about you?
I don't know. I definitely do like Empyre. It was good, but like I said, it just also felt like it was kind of neat to me. Like I think it's the aftermath issues are going to pretty much make or break this, which is a sad thing to say. Huh?
The event as a whole, you mean?
Yeah.
Like kind of how you judge it?
Right. Like, because this pretty much ends the meat and potatoes of it, but obviously since they're doing these aftermath stuff, and that's supposed to reverberate across the whole line, the whole universe. Like, all right, let's see what actually they're talking about here before I, pass judgment on the event as a whole, which we'll probably be talking about if we ever do a year end of the year thing, which we did not do. I realized. I just realized we didn't do we still hadn't done a year or end of the year thing like we usually do. So yeah,
I was about to say, that's so delayed, and then the next thing we knew, we were in quarantine.
Yeah,
so,
which some of that didn't necessarily wasn't, it was fault of our own and not necessarily quarantine or anything, because H7 pretty much did his stuff. Regardless,
that's right, I did. So that's right, I did.
And the rest of us was slacking.
I am gonna go with Guardians of the Galaxy number 6.
Okay.
It was just I thought it was pretty. It was a pretty good read. There's something that we all sort of needed to read about the ongoing story of Richard Rider.
Right, and you being also a Richard Rider fan, and
well, at the end of the day, it wasn't even so much that as it was just we needed to find out what was going on with just Nova, the Nova Corps. This was there is no Nova solo title anymore.
Right.
Be it Sam Alexander or Richard Rider. So it's kind of picking up the pieces from that as well.
But what I'm saying is, like, even I said, outside of the fact that you are a fan of his, and what's been going on him, like you've been saying for the last few years up until this moment, this kind of bears out some development and some of that probably for the better for his character.
Definitely.
In that, and maybe we'll see some more going forward. Who knows? For myself, I actually like I said, Empyre number 6 was actually pretty good, but I still kind of wanna. I don't know. It was all right. I'm thinking, weirdly enough, I'm going to go with New Mutants number 12.
Nothing wrong with that. I thought that was a pretty entertaining read.
Yeah, because like I said, even with that whole turn with Glob Herman and how they handled the situation, which was probably the best outcome for that situation, really, because it's like if they just go in there guns blazing or powers blazing, that would have caused more problems than than not. But like I said, the way they handle it, and I assume is going to bear out in the X books later. I mean, at some point, is a good deal. That being said, we can move on to the news. Oh, excuse me. But first we can do an ad read first.
Our first ad read of the night is for Wink, the personalized wine club. Wink is a world of wine delivered right to your door. From rosé to cabernet to torronté, Wink has over 100 styles of wine to discover. Ever try an orange wine? Wink connects you to a world of exclusive wines tailored to your tastes and delivered directly to your door. Wink delivers 4 bottles of wine to you every month with free shipping. You can pick your own bottles or let Wink choose and match to your taste. It doesn't cost a thing to become a member, and you can skip or cancel anytime. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy an exclusive discount of $20 off your first order. To place your first order with $20 off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us/wink. That's cspn.us/WINC. Wink wines through CSPN. Do it today. And now we get into the news.
And we start off with a bit of sad news in the cinematic corner. As most people know by now, Chadwick Boseman, actor, obviously a lot for germane to this part of the world. The Black Panther, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, has died of colon cancer, which apparently he had been battling for the last 4 years, which means that he had been filming. He had filmed at least 7 movies while he was dealing with colon cancer and getting treatments, and apparently he was also being real private about it. But there has been some speculations about it, because of his weight loss, and people were kind of joking him about at the end of it, which I hope they feel really stupid about, not knowing that it was from cancer, and because he was going through chemo and whatnot.
And he had to do a lot to just keep his body in shape to perform.
Exactly.
Be it as a soldier in Defy Bloods, or in a courtroom in Marshal, or just in as a cop in 21 Bridges. He had to do a lot just to keep himself upright. And I don't even joke about that, to keep himself upright so that he could perform in those roles.
So, needless to say, there was a lot of outpouring and condolences for his family and whatnot, and a lot of viewings of Black Panther by folks who, obviously that's his most famous role to date, but he has done other stuff. So there has been, in fact, I believe there is actually some I saw on Twitter earlier, where somebody, I think at the time of his recording, was watching the Black Panther. So yeah, when the news came out a few days ago, there was a lot of that, which is August 28th, by the way. It was, quite sad. Like it really messed me up when I heard it, because when I found out I had just woken up, and Agent 70, not only did Agent 70 kind of tell me, but I got the notification from Google Notifications, as I told him. So I was like, well, this is a shitty thing to wake up to.
Right.
And quite unexpected, obviously, but
It was an unfortunate. What I would add before we move on to the next related story, really, because of when it happened, because of when it was announced, really, it was Friday evening, and any other summer Friday evening, a lot of people would be out and about. They would not be sitting at their phones, or sitting with their phones in front of them, or sitting at their computer, possibly, like I was. But Friday night, summertime, we're talking no pandemic going on, no quarantine going on, no lockdowns, or whatever form of lockdown that we're all still sort of living in, isn't going on. Maybe we don't all see it at the same time, but it seemed like, because of circumstances being what they are, everyone saw this news
right
at the same time, or roughly the same time. So it seemed like there was more of an outpouring of heartbreak and sad feelings, because it seemed like everyone was in tune at the same time, when normally maybe we wouldn't be kind of glued to our screens.
I don't know. I mean,
I'm just saying, on a Friday night, dude, in the summertime.
I'm putting it. While I do agree with you on that, but let's face it. Even while people are out and about, they do have their phones about them, and the way news kind of, from whether it's like Google News notifications or whatever, or even Twitter for
But we may not
notifications.
be as prone to pick up our phone. You know what I mean? Like, they might stay in the pocket for a little while longer. So
I guess, I suppose. But regardless,
that's just my 2 cents on that. So it just seemed like that was, like I felt like a contributing factor into everyone, adding to the outpouring of grief at the same time.
Maybe, like I said, it's possible, but at the same time, like I said, people are not that far from their phones and all that kind of goodness. So I kind of, yes, that could have been the case, but I kind of doubt it. Like, just even regardless of how COVID is playing out right now. But the last thing on this before we move on was the message from Chadwick Boseman's Twitter account of the news. And I'll just go ahead and read off a little bit of it. I'm not going to do the whole thing because you can see, if you haven't seen it by now, uh, then I don't know what to tell you. It is with immeasurable grief that we confirm the passing of Chadwick Boseman. Chadwick was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer in 2016 and battled it with these last 4 years as it progressed to stage 4. And it goes on from there to talk about some of the roles that he had been taking, in the while this is going on. Like I said, he had pretty much filmed 7 movies, including the couple of Marvel movies and his own, during the time that he's doing this. And like I said, not that many people being the wiser on this because, he kind of kept it private for pretty good reason, probably, for obvious reasons also. But yeah, and of course, there's this picture of him that went along with it, the outpouring of support has been, touching, but also there was some of it, which is what I have a problem with, that kind of self-serving for folks, because of course, whenever somebody dies, there is always people who kind of make it about themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and that sucks to hell. And there was definitely some of that going on during the course of this, and I'm like, oh Jesus, people, please stop being stupid. Anyway, but that's my thing. We'll move on to the next story, which is pretty much
So next up, yeah, exactly. Next up is just a follow up. ABC aired a Black Panther tribute to Chadwick Boseman after a commercial free airing of Black Panther this past Sunday evening in prime time as a tribute to Chadwick Boseman. I did not catch, I've seen Black Panther a million times, so I didn't watch it on television, but I
same.
did mean to catch the tribute but missed it. But I did end up seeing it. It was actually on the abcnews.com website.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it has probably migrated to the abc.com website, but at the time when I watched it, I think it was the next day, Monday, um, it was on abcnews.com.
Right.
So, and
And
it's not on, and we actually just checked, it's not on Disney Plus at the moment. So
correct, yeah, because we were talking before the show, and I thought I had seen something about it, but it's actually just the picture, the Black Panther, um,
banner, right?
banner. Thank you. With that just has added, a tribute to Chadwick Boseman on it, and there's nothing in there as far as I can tell that I know. Now, we're also worth noting that that tribute is still out there, and also I'm going to assume what is on the Marvel Entertainment channel on YouTube, which is like 4 minutes, is probably taken from that. I didn't watch that one either, um, because like I said, for I couldn't do it at the time, and actually I still hadn't done it. So to be honest, but yeah, there definitely are tributes out there about the ABC News thing is probably out there. I hadn't checked for certain. If it is, I'll put it put a link to the video into the show notes if people want to watch that, and also the Marvel Entertainment one, which is a smaller version of it. I assume that is on YouTube. So we are going to move on with the next story, which is another death, sadly. X-Men: The Animated Series' Cyclops voice actor Norm Spencer has also died, and this was like I think a couple of days after that happened. So Norm Spencer, who voiced Scott Summers' Cyclops on X-Men: The Animated Series, has passed away. And there is a tweet here from Cal Dodd, who was also a voice actor, who was the Wolverine voice actor. Excuse me. Lost my dear friend and cohort Norm Spencer. Wolverine actor, voice actor Cal Dodd tweeted, "What a sad day. Norm was the voice of Cyclops on X-Men the Animated Series. He was a genuine character and sweetheart. I will miss you. I will." That's a typo, I think. "I will miss her. You psych. Sorry about the convertible," which is a reference from from X-Men the animated series. Bub, see you later, my friend. And you know, if you haven't seen X-Men the animated series at this time, I don't know what you're doing. Next up,
All right, next up, New Mutants technically saw an uptick in business on Saturday with 2.45 million at the box office, which was an increase of 4%. But that's when you okay. So ultimately, New Mutants secured a $7 million weekend box office where only 62% of all theaters were open. So
right? It
uh,
sounds like up until now they made like upwards of 10 at the point of we're
oh,
recording.
so since last weekend,
Right.
they have added about 3 million more. So yeah, um, kind of what we expected. Not a lot of money.
Right. Yeah, and we kind of talked about a little bit of this before the show, and it's like, yeah, there's factors in this,
Mm,
um, not unlike being the fact that I mean it's a X Men movies and they're not good, but that's just kind of a blanket one, so that can't, you know, COVID definitely is probably a big one, and as I was saying before the show, like as long as this uh, movie language, which was well before COVID, we can't really say that it was because of COVID. You know, that was why it got such low numbers. While Tenet on the other hand kind of got bigger numbers and was in more theaters. Sounds like, which is weird. Like, stop going to theaters. This is what's wrong, people. Anyway,
yeah,
regardless, that's
we're not trying to extend the pandemic because we're going to the movies. So
right.
let's use our heads here, folks.
Exactly. So, yeah, as it says here, 62% of all cinemas were open, and I think it's like 73 were open for Tenet, something like that. But people were apparently still going. Next up,
That's you.
Spider-Man Spider-Verse 2 adds Incredibles 2 and Coco story artist. So yeah, Sony's Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse #2 is adding an incredible new artist to its team in Octavio E. Rodriguez. The first Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse film was released in Sony 2012, as we all know. So yeah, so this is pretty much a big get for them. I haven't still yet to see Coco. Matter of
I've
fact,
seen parts of it. I've seen most of it, but not
yeah,
all the way through.
I haven't seen Incredibles 2 all the way through either, but you know, I've seen parts of it, so I'm about to actually do that. But regardless, that's cool. And I don't know. I think this is still on track to come out this November. Yeah, supposedly still on track to come out this October. Oh, excuse me, no, October 22nd. Excuse me, October 2022 release date.
Ah,
Sorry, folks.
that's
That's
funny.
yeah. So it's animation, so it's a better chance of staying on track than live action movies at this point. Next up,
That's funny. Next up, Sony Pictures Television is reportedly developing a live-action TV series about Silk, an ally of Spider-Man's in the Marvel Comics. Silk is the superhero pseudonym of Korean American Cindy Moon, who debuted in 2014's, damn, it feels like it was yesterday, 2014 Spider-Man Volume 3, Number 4. Lauren Moon, no relation, who I guess is of Atypical and Good Trouble, is in talks to write Silk, which will be executive produced by Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse's Phil Lord and Chris Miller. Amy Pascal, the former head of Sony Pictures, will also executive produce Silk. Pascal had previously been developing Silk as a feature film back in 2018. Okay.
So executive producer means they put up the money and getting
Pretty
people
much.
to people. So hopefully they will have a little bit more, hands on to it, and it'll be straight. But I feel like, despite them being attached in the way they're attached, we're like I said, I'm hoping for the better, unlike
Right.
Agent 70 was, because yeah, the whole Sony Pictures deal, were just being them just doing the thing without Marvel. That's kind of a bummer.
Yeah. I mean, my hope would be that Marvel would contribute to this, but it would seem that Sony's off on their own doing this.
Yeah, as they tend to do. So it says here no network or streaming service is currently attached, but sources say Amazon is in talks to acquire the project. along with
All
other
right.
potential Marvel series based on characters on control. And this is not the project that we talked about. Well, presumably this is not the top project we talked about the last week. That Olivia Wilde is obviously, so that's probably separate from this, more likely. Next up.
That's you.
Oh, I just did that one. Just did this. Oh no, you did. I'm sorry. Blah, 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 blah. What? I don't know what I'm thinking. Um, Eternals director says the film's LGBTQ relationship is inherent to her story. So the highly anticipated Marvel film from director Chloe Zhao, Eternals, will feature an LGBTQ, yes, I'll do that. I'm gonna make sure I got my letters right. Relationships that's essential to the story. In a recent Hollywood Reporter piece, Zhao and Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige provided a few details on the upcoming film and how essential its diversity is to its story. The LGBTQ relationship fans will see in an good lord, what am I doing? In the upcoming blockbuster was always the sort of inherent in the story and the makeup of the different types of Eternals, quote unquote, says Feige. I think it's extremely well done, and I look forward to that level of inclusion in future movies being less of a topic. So, yeah, there you go. Next up. Oh, and then apparently it's in track to be in theaters February 12th, 2021. We already know who's a part of it. So, next.
Right. All right. In very pleasant news, The Mandalorian will return with new episodes beginning on October 30th, Disney announced on Twitter. The announcement seems to indicate that the show will continue its weekly release schedule, much like the first season did. There's still no trailer yet, but expect that imminently now that we have a date. Hopefully it's full of adorable, this is someone editorializing.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully it's full of adorable Baby Yoda, or sorry, the child moments.
Which, that quote unquote child's 50 years old. Let's stop doing that. Like, yes, Baby Yoda's not doing
He's
any.
50!
Exactly. I mean, granted, Baby Yoda's not any better, but, still. But yes, so this was good news that happened to come out yesterday, as of this recording. So I'm looking forward. You think you're gonna go and rewatch the first season, or you think it's still fresh where you don't need to?
It's still fresh.
Yeah.
It's fresh. It feels like I just watched it. So I mean, I might go through it again just for just for the proverbial blanks and giggles.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's necessary. But listen, everyone has a different rate of memory loss. So
yeah, and it's only eight
watching.
episodes. Yeah, it's only 8 episodes, so you can pretty much blow through that. Hell, even I can blow through that fairly quickly. my noted penchant for not binging things. John Boy,
given the rate I can binge stuff, I'll be through in a heartbeat.
True. According to John Boyega, Star Wars Disney knows F all about writing characters of color. And I'm just going to say, yeah, I probably agree with this. I meant to look up if there are any other articles, but shout out to Tim for this one.
Right. I'll say specifically the Star Wars corner.
Yeah.
Definitely, and when you read his statement, it makes all the sense, and like he hits it right on the head in that, they started out strong, but ended up with these people of color essentially being token characters at the end of this most recent trilogy.
Totally, yeah. They his character and and Rose's character, who really and that's a whole other thing, because so let's get to the statement first, and then we'll get to that. But John Boyega has spoken out on his experience in the latest Star Wars trilogy of movies, while also criticizing Disney for not knowing how to write characters. Because guess what, folks, you can do both. The quote is, you get yourself involved in projects and you're not necessarily going to like everything. But what I would say to Disney is, do not bring out a black character, market them to be much more important in the franchise than they are, and then have them pushed to the side. I absolutely totally agree. This is what Boyega told GQ magazine. It's not good, I'll say it straight up. And of course, Oh, here we go. He goes on to say that, like, you guys knew what to do with Daisy Ridley. You knew what to do with Adam Driver, he added. You knew what to do with these other people, but when it came to Kayla Marie Tran, when it came to John Boyega, you knew F all. So what do you say to me? What they want you to say is, I enjoy being a part of it. It's a great experience. Nah, nah, nah. I'll take that deal when it's a great experience. They gave all the nuance to Adam Driver, all the nuance to Daisy Ridley. Let's be honest. Daisy knows this. Adam knows this. Everybody knows this. I'm not exposing anything. To which, yeah, he's right. But again, once because he's saying this, people are all like, well, yeah, yeah, no, this and that, and other. And well, Kelly Marie hadn't said anything, about it. So why you can't be like that and just shut up and and not say
Don't
anything
say
about
dribble. Don't say dribble. Uh, you know, I said don't say dribble.
it. Yeah, I heard you. I heard you. But yeah, I'm like, look, because every time something like this happens, they always folks always want to try to, well, here's this person and here's this person, and or pull it out of Dr. King or something where it's like trying to shut folks up from speaking out on things and using other people who have their own reasons for not having said anything, whatever they might be, and they're not, can't say they're wrong for it. And plus, in Kelly Marie's trend, like shit, she got bullied when she can, for saying anything. So, which caused her to even leave social media for a while.
Right.
So you can't really hold that up as the standard you're trying to do when you just don't want to hear about what some real things that's going on. But that's that. It's I know some are probably gonna say I'm making this race thing, but whatever, it's not. It's just a real thing. So, like you could see it. It's out there on the screen with both of those characters and more. So, moving right along. Go ahead.
Definitely. Next up, The Final Frontier is continuing to bring audiences inclusive characters played by members of underrepresented communities in Hollywood. The third season of CBS All Access's Star Trek Discovery will introduce the first non-binary and transgender characters in Gene Roddenberry's iconic franchise that celebrates diversity via a sci-fi lens. Blue Del Barrio will make their screen acting debut as the non-binary character Adira, who is highly intelligent with a confidence and self-assurance well beyond their years. They will find a new home on the USS Discovery and form an unexpected bond with Lieutenant Commander Paul Stamets, Anthony Rapp, and Dr. Hugh Culber, played by Wilson Cruz. Ian Alexander will play the transgender character Gray, empathetic, warm, and eager to fulfill his lifelong dream of being a Trill host, but he will have to adapt when his life takes an unexpected turn. Ooh, is there a Dax guest appearance in the near future?
Ooh, you know what? I didn't even think about that. Huh.
Trill.
Yeah.
How many
Well,
do you know?
I mean, there's been a few out there, but I mean, that's the
You know what I
most
mean? How many
notable
do you
one.
know like that come to mind right away?
I mean, you're right, but no, I didn't think about that part of possibly being the Dax host, if that's
Or
where you were
being,
going
or at
with it.
least seeing a previous Dax host, if not Curzon, you know.
Sure. Yeah, like I said, that was a point of this I didn't even think about. That's interesting. Um, but yeah, I need to catch up on Discovery. That's kind of cool. But yeah, you know, it's I guess it shouldn't be weird, but it also feels kind of weird. It's like, yeah, as the whole Roddenberry dream, and all, it took this long for any Star Trek show to kind of do something like this. And this is just first steps. Like, this should not be a thing that's just, you know, propped up as a news article. Like, this is just pretty much just how the world is. Like, there are many different types of people and many different groups of people out there, and they should all be represented in media. Well, I would say also, because just because you have folks in media, they're not always represented well, as both Agent 70 and I can attest as being of people of color.
Of course.
So, but just just other groups in general who are really getting shitted on at this point, including non-binary and trans folks. So there you go. But like I said, this is good news. I need to catch up on Discovery. So this next news, Agent 70 already knows about that, but not about it because I brought it out after the show. I wasn't gonna put it in the lineup, but I was like, this was too funny not to. The Rock's most famous pick gets a Black Adam transformation in new fan art. So somebody basically took the picture of him with the fanny pack, or the old picture of him with the fanny pack and the chain, and put in the Black Adam colors. Basically made a Black Adam shirt out of what he had on, which looks well done because I'm like you can't even, you know, it was a well done shop, put it that way. But it was also funny at the same time. So
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't know if you have the news later on in the news because it's not really it's not necessarily a cinematic news story, but The Rock actually came out and revealed that his family had come down with COVID-19.
I did not. I did see that though.
I mean, right, I was about to say it doesn't necessarily qualify as a story that we would go over, but the one thing I would mention is that please, please, folks, do not let your guard down, even if things are opening up, and please remember to wear a mask where you need to wear it.
We do
So
have
that
a similar story, and my next, we do have a similar story, and there's something I will address. Well, I will say there, not necessarily address, just one little quick statement. But moving along,
right. So next up, Tenet's John David Washington, son of Denzel, gets Christopher Nolan's vote to play Green Lantern, but Nolan has said that he won't direct. So while Christopher Nolan no longer has an interest in directing superhero movies, he agreed that his Tenet lead, John David Washington, would make a great Green Lantern. This was mentioned in an interview led by Dorian Parks. Washington and Nolan were asked about the idea of a Green Lantern film starring Washington. So that's cool.
and yeah, the whole Nolan's not no longer interested. Of course he's not, because he got what he wanted out of that Batman trilogy, which was more money to make his own stuff.
Right.
So, you know, I'll probably say that might not come up later, but so like Agent Seven said, John David Washington, he would want for John Stewart Green Lantern. He basically said in that interview, sure, I guess. I don't know. I still haven't seen Tenet, but it's probably gonna be a while to do that. But regardless, Robert Pattinson has COVID-19. Sources say halting the Batman production. So this is a story from Vanity Fair, who's saying that they've learned from a source that the star has it, and as Agent 70 was saying, before the show, he said, "What'd you say? You said you found another article."
Right. What I read prior to seeing the Vanity Fair piece. Shout out to Iron Man 1. Um, Prior to reading the Vanity Fair piece, I saw that the production had been shut down because one person had come down with COVID-19. So it's interesting that Vanity Fair came out and said it's actually the lead of the movie.
Right.
I mean, honestly, it could have been anyone on the production staff. You know,
Right.
that's how that's how these things really need to roll. In that, if someone who is on set doesn't have to be one of the actors, is infected, they definitely need to shut production down until they're able to isolate and quarantine.
Which kind of brings up the statement I was going to make, in that, the number of people that are dying from COVID, and of normal people dying from COVID, is immense, and we keep hearing about these celebrities that supposedly have it, and they seem to be all right, which in itself speaks of a great big divide in healthcare,
Of course.
and is really messed up. Because I had just seen, like, I think I was watching somebody's TikTok where they were saying like their dad died because they were in the hospital all alone, and the doctors weren't really doing anything, and they just died alone in the hospital of COVID. Meanwhile, we keep hearing about all these celebrities that supposedly have it or have had it, and they're fine.
Well, I was about to say, let's not overstate things. They definitely go through a pretty rough, uh, a rough period when they're, well, at least the ones who have been open about it, like Tom Hanks and his wife
Sure,
Rita Wilson.
but
You know,
also,
they
but my point
not,
was, yeah,
no, I
but
know they recover, right? I see what you mean, but let's not say that that they're fine and dandy. But at the end of the day, I understand the greater point you're trying to make in that, it's just it exhibits the disparity in the level of healthcare and the haves and the have-nots when it comes to who can afford premium healthcare. I
right,
understand that.
yeah, which is my point. Um, yeah. So yeah, so that being the case, the Batman has been halted for that if the sources are, if this is the case and the sources or whatever. So there you go.
All righty.
Which is not the first time that the it's it's been halted for COVID, but because they had just started really back um, doing this not that long ago, so that's also kind of telling. Next up,
Next up, Avatar: The Last Airbender is undergoing a mini revival. The original Nickelodeon series that I have not watched yet, and the Legend of Korra spin-off, which I have not watched yet, have been among Netflix's most watched series since their arrival on the streaming service in the past few months. That added attention has led creators Brian Konietzko and Michael Dante DiMartino to put to bed any speculation that a season 4 was ever in the works, though teased that there's always space for future stories in the universe. Okay.
hmm, I mean I think you would like Avatar. I haven't watched Korra myself, so I can't really speak on that one. Maybe check it out. There are
Mm-hmm.
some spots. There are some spots in Avatar that's a little slow, and some are like, it's not like there are parts that are not great, but it's some pretty good storytelling in there and animation and everything. So I think you might enjoy it.
All right. Listen, it's on my list. Although my list is long and extensive, I may have to do some bumping around of places on the list, though. So we shall see.
And there are only 3 seasons, so you can blow through that fairly easily. And I think,
Ha!
and there are like what 20 some odd episodes a piece, I believe, uh, in all seasons. So yeah, it doesn't take that long. So
Got
and some good reverse work and even some real sad moments of whatever. But anyway, yeah. Next up, Nemesis movie based on Mark Millar comic taps Project Power directors. So a Nemesis movie based on Mark Millar's comic book taps Project Power's directors. And that's just pretty much reiterating the title. Thanks. The 2010 comic book written by Millar tells the story of Nemesis, who has the alter ego of Matt Anderson, and also looks like a cross between Moon Knight and Batman, but with guns. That's just me editorializing. Who uses his wealth for villainous purposes and is out for revenge against the cops who imprisoned his parents. The rather dark Batman meets Joker style comic has long been touted for a big screen adaptation. The film one time had the late Tony Scott attached to direct, but then later the Greys' Joe Carnahan was on board to write and direct, with Millar showering Carnahan's script with praise. In 2018, producer Sue Kroll, along with Jules Daly and Ridley Scott, was reportedly set to produce a Nemesis film. However, 2 years later, it looks like the project is finally moving on again. So Henry Joost and Ariel Schloman, who direct the Netflix superhero film Project Power. Have you seen it? That's that joint with Jamie Foxx.
No, I have not yet.
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard middling things about it.
That's
Um,
that's the same that I've heard.
yeah. Have been signed by Warner Brothers to direct Nemesis with Emerald Fennell, basically other people involved with it. So, yeah. We'll see if that actually bears out. Next up.
All right, next. Netflix is currently developing a number of tie-in projects for its widely successful adaptation of The Witcher, one of which is the upcoming prequel series, The Witcher Blood Origin, which takes place ages before the events of the main series. In recent weeks, rumors surrounding actor Jason Momoa's involvement have circulated, but were thought to be unsubstantiated. Uh, what the hell is Redanian Intelligence? Is that a website?
Let's
It's
assume.
now reported, citing two independent sources, that the Justice League star is currently in talks for the lead role in Blood Origin. It should be noted, however, that a deal has not yet been finalized. Momoa would reportedly play the continent's first Witcher. Okay.
Cool. I'm looking forward to the drink, The Witcher Blood Orange.
Oh no.
X-Men
Oh.
kills. Oh wait, we're getting over into the comic book news.
Yes, we're transitioning over to the comic book news.
Because I did pull out another story that was seemingly cinematic, but it's not necessary. No, we don't need to. I'll just read it later. X-Men kills off one of Marvel's first mutant villains. And this is spoilers for X-Men 11. And I remember this, but I didn't necessarily take it as like, okay, it's no big whoop because one, he's a mutant.
Right. Two, there's Krakoan resurrection protocols.
Right. Although, and also, as I will say again, maybe some folks don't really need to be resurrected, but that's just me. Like, but hey, I understand. As Empyre crossover takes over the Marvel Universe, X-Men joined the war against the Kotati. Yeah, and that's actually that was also something that was brought up in Empire 6. It was like, oh yeah, no, the X-Men took care of this thing that was on the moon, which we had, from this particular issue. So, which it totally did. But basically, long story short, Toad died in battle.
Right.
Which he pretty much showed up for that panel to die, and because he's not like he was doing anything else.
Right. I remember mentioning it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's only so much you can, so much weight you can give that because of what's been going on in Krakoa. So.
Well, that and also it's Toad. Who cares?
Right.
Next up.
Anyway, next up, Ten of Swords creation artist explains how it sets up a new visual language for the X-Men. Artist Pepe Larraz is one of the most important artists in the Dawn of X stable, according to X-Men group editor Jordan D. White. If Larraz is drawing an X-Men comic book, it's a sure sign that story will be pretty significant. To that end, Larraz, who helped launch Dawn of X by drawing the House of X limited series, will draw a series of one-shots in the upcoming Ten of Swords crossover, starting with September 23rd's Ten of Swords creation number 1. Cool.
Yeah. I mean, goes without saying, Pepe Larraz is a great artist. So,
yes,
just period. And stuff's been great. You can see if you're watching the video, the cover. I assume this is the cover for X of Swords or Ten of Swords creation number 1. Next up, Chris Bachalo returns to Spider-Man for Amazing Spider-Man. Excuse me. Chris Bachalo returns to Amazing Spider-Man for 850, much to the chagrin of @1agent_70.
Why?
Because you said you didn't like Bachalo's art in this.
Wrong. Although I don't think it's as fitting as it is to other books. I definitely am a fan of Bachalo's art, though.
Well, no, yeah, but I'm saying for this is what I'm saying.
Right, not necessarily. Yeah, exactly.
I know you liked his art, but for this is what I'm talking about.
Exactly. I wouldn't say that I was unhappy that he's coming back to this, but I definitely appreciate his art more on Doctor Strange. Oh, that was killer when he was on Doctor Strange.
Totally.
And whatchamacallit, he's had some long runs on X-Men as well, but I think he is so set to, he's so his work definitely fits Doctor Strange to a T, and I wish he would go back to it. But listen, if he's getting work, good for him.
Yeah. I didn't have the issue with his thing. Like, there were some spots where it was a little bit busy, but yeah, it was okay. But regardless, the Green Goblin is not the only familiar face returning with September 30th milestone, Amazing Spider-Man number 50, with artist Chris Bachalo returning to Spider-Man as well. Newsarama has the first look at Bachalo's variant cover for the Legacy numbered issued 850. Bachalo is also slated to draw one of the several stories in this oversized special. And then there's a bunch of covers there's at least a slideshow of a bunch of variant covers for that issue
Right.
that you can see in the article if you so choose. Next up.
All right, so Immortal She-Hulk is going to give Jennifer Walters a new understanding of being a Hulk. Writer Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk ongoing series has rewritten the rules of what it means to be a gamma mutate like Bruce Banner, and on September 23rd, Bruce's cousin Jennifer Walters, aka She-Hulk, is going to learn firsthand just how harrowing the experience can be. In Ewing and artist John Davis Hunt's Immortal She-Hulk #1 one-shot. Though she's often been in control of her Hulk-out, something Ewing himself points out as a core aspect of her character, She-Hulk recently died, as we found out in Empyre #4, with her body being used as a host for a Kotati warrior, and that journey will have a dramatic effect on where she goes from here, and it's somewhat teased in Empyre #6.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get more on that in the Immortal She-Hulk one-shot.
The Green Door. Next up. Iron Man versus the House of X era X-Men and latest Contest of Champions game update. Kablam's long-running mobile game, Marvel's Champions of Heroes, is welcoming the X-Men's House of X era as the part of its next in-game update, The Rise of X, or Rise of 10, I guess. Charles Xavier makes his presence known throughout the battle realm with a bold proposition. Recognize mutant autonomy and the sovereignty of their new nation, Krakoa, and you will be rewarded with unimaginable medical marvels, reads Kablam's description of the story. So that's pretty cool. They're bringing House of X, Hoxpox to Contest of Champions, which now that I'm thinking about, I hadn't played in a minute. I know Strike Force has some of the mutants in it, the more ones you would expect, I guess. But I don't know who else was not in Contest of Champions, because I know there was a few of them there also. There's also a trailer here, so you can for a new motion comic for it, so you can check that out in this article. And it looks like we're getting Magneto and two versions of Magneto, the classic and the white version. Next up.
All right, next up, mild spoilers. I've talked about this in reviewing Iron Man 2020 #6. Iron Man 2020 finally gives Arno Stark his chance to save the world. So if you haven't been keeping up with Iron Man 2020, for the past several months, Iron Man has been facing off with his brother Arno, with the entire fate and freedom of all beings on Earth at stake. Tony has resisted Arno's dark actions, even if they come from good intentions. But with Arno always dreaming of the coming extinction event entity, he was committed to fighting and saving the world. In Iron Man 2020 #6, Arno Stark just got the chance to do so, saving the entire world himself. But it's not all that it seems, thanks to his brother Tony and his new holographic armor. So I would definitely recommend that if you are interested in this story, it is definitely worth reading. Go back and check out Iron Man 2020.
There you go. Still haven't done it yet. Next up, inside Star Wars: The High Republic, meet Yoda. So apparently, well, makes sense. Yoda's going to be a part of the High Republic, which takes place before the prequels. Well, before the prequels. Let's see. Basically, cut to the chase, Yoda will feature prominently in Daniel Jose Older's Star Wars: The High Republic Adventures comic, coming 2021 from IDW Publishing, which that's kind of weird. The Jedi Master that Older depicts in his series, however, won't quite be the same sage-like being we know. It's especially exciting to be able to introduce him in the era of the High Republic, Older says StarWars.com. The High Republic Yoda is a journeyman out in the galaxy. According to Older, the Emperor's little green friend will still be treading some somewhat familiar ground, that of teacher. And while he's already a respected member of the Jedi Council, we meet Yoda in IDW's High Republic Adventures series, doing what he does best, looking out for young folk. Indicates a group of Padawans traveling around the galaxy to learn the ways of the Jedi with a hands-on approach. So there you go. A little bit and some concept art for you in this article. Next up.
All right. Next up, Electronic Arts has released a preview of the single player story mode for Star Wars Squadrons, where
Yay.
gamers can choose to either fly with the Rebel Alliance or the Empire. The footage takes pilots inside the cockpits of the Rebel X Wings and Empire TIE fighters as they engage in battle in outer space. One of the early looks involves an early Imperial mission behind enemy lines. Sounds exciting.
It's actually, yeah. If you were, I mean, I don't,
If you've played this before, it might look familiar, but with little extra tweaks, right?
seemingly so far, because obviously, this is, if you've definitely played Battlefront 2, the gameplay seems like it's just an expansion of that, of the a part of that game, I would say, part of it. Because a lot of it's on the ground, but there was some, aerial battles and whatnot. So it is definitely part of that, but it also harkens back to seemingly X-Men. I mean, X-wing Tie Fighter, the classic games from
Right. That's
LucasArts.
what I remember. I don't know this Battlefront stuff.
This,
I remember X-wing and the original X-wing and the original Tie Fighter.
right. So from what I saw, because I think I did watch the video of this, and there's some shades of X-wing Tie Fighter there. Not enough to get a sense of how deep into it that it gets into that stuff, but you get shades of it for certain. So I'm kind of excited about that, as you may also be if you've enjoyed those classic games. Next up, though, whoops, Marvel's Avengers: Everything You Need to Know About Gear and Cosmetics. So this is a story from Square Enix, pretty much outlining, you know, the situation with cosmetics and gear in Marvel's Avengers. I'm not going to pretty much bore you with everything that this article is saying, but basically, it just it just says what cosmetics are and what the vendors that are selling stuff are giving and things like that. This is a loot game, so there's going to be a lot of loot that drops in within game, and there's also going to be some that's saying not unlike a say Destiny 2, if you know of, well, a Destiny 2 anthems, etc., etc., etc. The Division 2, if you know of those games. And here is the point. Actually, no, let's go to the next one before I say what I was going to say.
All right. So, in its September 1 launch day war table, Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics revealed Kate Bishop, Marvel's Avengers' first new hero. Kate Bishop and Clint Barton, the original Hawkeye, share similar abilities and powers in the world of Marvel. Both are superheroes who wield a bow and wear purple. According to Crystal Dynamics, Kate will have her own unique set of skills and abilities in comparison to the 6 launch heroes. But we don't know how she will relate to Hawkeye, whom Crystal Dynamics previously revealed will come to Marvel's Avengers soon. According to the game's reviewer's guide, a new operation called Taking Aim will appear in late. That's a little on the nose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Taking Aim will appear in late October. Taking Aim is the first step in the game's Hawkeye-focused post-launch campaign. Players will unlock Kate Bishop, who will then help players locate Clint Barton. Okay.
Right. Yeah, we definitely, because in that war table we do get a sense of where that's going, and yeah, the new power set. Obviously, she's going to be an archer, but there is something that shows up in the course of the game after having seized, which partially goes to explain. So she's basically going to be able to teleport, which is not a power set that she has in the comics.
That's weird.
It is, but but with some things that happen in the story, I have an idea of how that's gonna play out, and it makes sense. But comic wise, it doesn't really make sense, but but in this sense, it does. That being said, the last on that front, Marvel's Avengers Easter egg teases another hero might be worthy to hold Mjolnir. So yeah, apparently at some point, which I have not yet gotten to in my playthrough of the game, there is, let's say, we might as well say an MCU reference that happens in a sense. And in fact, it even says here in this article, which before I even read this article, I was like, okay, I knew of a place that something similar happened, because in the beginning of the in the beginning of the story, something similar happens, but on a not necessarily the same way. Without spoiling, because I know there might be people. So the game is not officially out yet. The game doesn't officially come out until tomorrow, as of this recording, on the 4th. However, if you pre-ordered the game, you were able to play it on September 1st. So I have, and I just played. Matter of fact, if you want to, you can go to my YouTube channel and see me play the first couple hours of it. The first like 3 or 4 hours of it. It's pretty good. That being said, but yeah, there is definitely an MCU Age of Ultron homage for a certain scene that has to do with what was just said that I will not spoil. Next up.
All right, next up, I'm going to combine the next two stories. Fortnite developer Epic Games added a new Marvel detail to the island overnight, a Black Panther monument called Panther's Prowl. Marvel and Black Panther fans have begun visiting the statue on the Fortnite island and paying tribute to actor Chadwick Boseman, according to Eurogamer. Boseman, who starred in Black Panther, as we said earlier, died at 43, according to as a result of complications from colon cancer. The new Marvel crossover Fortnite season began last week, and you can find the monument to the left of Misty Meadows for all of you Fortnite players out there.
We've already talked about the Marvel event that's going on, and it just happened to put this in after Chadwick Boseman's death. There's for 2 seconds part of me that wanted to check this out, but I refuse to play that game. I refuse. Because they screwed the game over, and eventually, when they brought out the original version of it. But hey, anyway, next up, Gotham Knights announces voice cast, and we kind of got a little bit of this already with I think somebody. Actually, no, maybe we didn't. No, we did. Warner Brothers Games' Montreal's secret Batman game has finally been revealed at DC FanCom, which was Gotham Knights. It's a new take on the DC universe featuring a playable Bat family, including Red Hood, Batgirl, Robin, and Nightwing, taking the stage in the wake of Batman's death. But the voice cast for these famous characters was a mystery up until now, except for the one person that we knew was playing, that we talked about last week. So here we go. Here we go. It has been recently revealed that Stephen O. Young, who, by the way, I just saw on catching up on Insecure recently, and recognized that it was him, of Marvel's Spider-Man, would be voicing Jason Todd Red Hood. By now, the rest of the voice cast has been revealed thanks to Gotham Knights' Twitter page. America Young from Saints Row the 4 will be voicing Barbara Gordon Batgirl. Christopher Sean from Fallout 76 voices Dick Grayson Nightwing. And Sloan Morgan Siegel rounds out the Bat family as Tim Drake. Wait, really? Huh. Tim Drake Robin. So the speculation that the Robin was not Tim Drake and that was Damian. So this is weird. But okay, sure. There we go. It's Tim Drake and not Damian, as folks thought it was, like me. And it sounds like Bruce Wayne might be Troy Baker, but who cares about that fool? Next up.
All right, next up. I just changed my settings on Waze to this just now. Waze is Kevin Conroy to give directions as Batman. Waze has revealed that its latest limited-time celebrity navigation voice will be none other than Batman himself, Kevin Conroy. This makes me want to just jump in the car this weekend and drive somewhere, avoiding the Labor Day crowds. Until October 31st, Waze will be celebrating Batman Day, which will be September 21st, by letting users choose one of two Batman-related voices to give them directions: Batman, Kevin Conroy, and the Riddler, Wally Wingert. According to 9to5 Google, whichever voice is picked will influence other Waze features, like having your car resemble the Batmobile. You can choose that, though. Or a Riddler vehicle dubbed the Riddler Racer, as well as accessing DC superhero and supervillain-themed Spotify lists. Now I got to check my Spotify lists. So,
I didn't know about the Wally
literally
Wingert
just changed this. Although I did see this I've been on the road recently, going back and forth to places where I actually needed to use my GPS. Um, just not going too far, just going into New Jersey. You know,
Sure.
everything's legal in New Jersey, and that's a Hamilton reference, folks.
Indeed.
And I forgot, and I did see this option. I just didn't activate it, but now I've activated it. So now I'm definitely just going to do this on purpose, and maybe beat the traffic tomorrow, and hit the road and turn on whatchamacallit, turn on my GPS.
So Wally Wingard, okay, I knew that name, but I was thinking Justice League, and that which might still actually bear out. But you may also know him as Hank Pym from Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes, and a whole bunch of other voice work. But apparently he's also playing Doctor Strange in that Marvel's Avengers. Uh,
Keeps out, cows on. Let's go.
That was
nice.
it. That was Kevin Conroy.
So I
I just put in like a previous trip into my ways.
right.
It's pretty funny.
That's actually, I mean, that's pretty cool. And why would you not want that? But also, I'm wondering, so if after so does the voice go away after
The 31st,
the
it looks like,
31st?
yeah.
That's kind of a bummer. But I know they've done that before, and I know there's been, but I'm pretty sure somebody will probably find a way to break that out. So wait, are you using, like, does Waze actually still have an app proper, or is it like integrated into something else? Because I thought it was like integrated into Google Maps at one point.
No, Waze still has an app proper. They're both owned by Google, but
Right.
Waze has its own app.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember a while ago I was trying to look into those celebrity voices with like Sam Jackson or something else. There was another one I wanted, but I could never, I never got it to go. But
Right.
this is cool. I would actually download this and try this. Try this. Just it's freaking Batman. Come on. Next up though,
It's Kevin Conroy.
yeah, Kevin Conroy, but it's Batman. So there you go. One and the same. I'm sure he gets tired of hearing that. But John Constantine is about to be hired by spoiler, and not the spoiler. So apparently DC's John Constantine finds himself in trouble again, and he's not the only one. In Hellblazer Rise and Fall #1, John quickly discovers that his ability to employ the dark arts is in need once more, and the person who is about to hire him is one fans probably will not anticipate. Although John Constantine is a self-centered individual, that's putting it mildly, which even cost him the Justice League Dark's home base in the graphic novel Forever Evil Blight, people who are having problems with the paranormal and supernatural tend to go for him for help because there is no doubt he is a master of the occult sciences. Cutting to the chase, and let's just assume that if the permalink is correct, yep, the devil himself is the one who is going to hire John out for his services. Or hire John for his service, not hire him out. That's totally different.
Understood.
So, yeah, cool. If you're reading Constantine, go have at it. Next up.
All right. A new Legend of Korra live reading wraps up Turf Wars Part 1 graphic novel. So this is in related news to the Legend of Korra and last Avatar: The Last Airbender stuff I was talking about earlier.
Kind of.
Last April, Dark Horse hosted a live reading from the Legend of Korra comic by two actors from the original animated series. It was an enormous success that led to another virtual live reading less than a month later, with an expanded cast. Although a few months have passed, fans will be most delighted to hear that a new Korra live reading has been announced, picking up where the previous live reading left off. Okay, good for them.
Yeah. So, and the cast is who you expected was, if you know Legend of Korra, who's voicing the folks on the Legend of Korra. And I totally forgot about this, even though I have not seen it. One Bud Bundy is playing one of the characters in that show. Playing one of the characters in the show.
I saw his name. I was like, oh snap, David Faustino, aka Bud Bundy. Bud.
So yeah, but outside of that, Janet Varner is Korra, and Asami and everybody else is there. Shout out to those folks doing that. I have never really caught one because I have not watched Korra, so that's that. But that's always cool. Next up, Bill and Ted Are Doomed in comic book exclusive prequel to Face the Music, complete with Rufus and Stations. Because you got to say it like that.
That's funny.
Excellent.
It's coming.
Excellent!
Thank
I was
you.
about to say I was waiting for a good point, and then you just called it. So
Yeah, I figured to get out of the way because it was coming. This weekend, Bill and Ted return to Face the Music, but next week you'll learn how they got there in the prequel, Bill and Ted Are Doomed comic book series. And they face their biggest challenge ever, irrelevance. Wow. September 9th, debuting September 9th, Bill and Ted Are Doomed takes the rockers into a new era, the mid-90s, as they face the fact that maybe, just maybe, the Wild Stallions aren't that cool anymore. Some would argue they never were.
No.
Writer Evan Dorkin and the writer the artist Roger Lagrange takes the Airhead duo on a world tour with Muhammad Mahaman. That's not what it said. As they race the clock to find themselves again, and as well as to write the song that will unite the universe.
shout out to Ali Shaheed.
Exactly. So yeah, if you're of a certain vintage, you know Bill and Ted. Obviously, most people know Keanu from John Wick and The Matrix at this point, but now, I say seeing those live action shots of them two is really weird. Partially because, like, whoa, you get a no facial hair Keanu Reeves looking kind of CG, except for the fact that it's actually him in those shots. It's kind of weird. But this is a comic book, so it doesn't really matter. Do you plan on watching this? When the movie when it comes out?
I'm not sure. I mean, given that we actually have a very wide array of ways to watch it, we can watch it at home, which is great.
It's true.
So I don't know if I'm going to watch it right away or not, but I'm probably going to catch it at some point.
Yeah, I'm kind of debating about doing the whole marathon, all three movies, but that's kind of a lot of silly to go through.
Right.
At one point. Anywho, Piecemeal launches graphic novella line for Aftershock Comics.
All right. So when 5 kids close to leaving high school decide on one last adventure together, and in the process discover a human brain in a jar full of murky liquid, it's the start of a story that includes a building called the Nightmare House and a killer out to build a new body for themselves, piece by piece. Welcome to Aftershock Comics' latest project, Piecemeal. It's written by Cullen Bunn, who you know from Uncanny X-Men and The Sixth Gun, with art by Simon Kudransky, who's drawn The Punisher and Spawn. Piecemeal isn't just a concentrated burst of body horror aimed at fans of Stephen King. Bunn cites It and Pet Sematary as influences on the book. It's also the first in a line of short graphic novels from Aftershock intended to showcase the creative talent the publisher works with. Okay.
Yeah, Cullen Bunn also known for a lot of his horror works before his turns in, like, didn't he wrote Moon Knight at one point, if I'm not mistaken.
So, think so.
Yeah, I think he kind of came to fame for a lot of his hard hitting stuff. So, yeah, sure, why not? Next up, the Adventure Zone's McElroy's first second tussle over graphic novel artist compensation. An uproar over compensation for fan art contributors to the Adventure Zone graphic novels broke out on Monday, with the McElroy family, who created the podcast on which the graphic novels are based and write the graphic novels, publicly urging changes to be made by First Second Books, the graphic novel publisher. On their Twitter account, the McElroys said that, quote, artists were not adequately paid for their work, and their art was put under excessively long exclusivity clauses, unquote. The McElroys, who said that they became aware of the contract terms Monday, urged First Second to make changes, asking that the exclusivity terms be lifted effective immediately and that payments for artists in future books be significantly increased. They also promised to pay artists featured in graphic novels already released an additional $500 on their own. So, kind of good on them, but I kind of wonder whether they did know this, but they're making good on it. Sounds like. And it sounds like First Second did respond to that, promising to modify contract terms for past and future art contributions, and to pay artists featured in future releases $500 over previously promised pay, matching what the McElroys did for artists featured in the past volumes. So sounds like they're trying to make good about something they were trying to get over on. Next up.
All right, next up, Looking for Space Gods in We Only Find Them When They're Dead by Al Ewing and Simone DeMeo. This book is actually out this week, and I intend to read it. I actually had on my list of things to get to after I kind of crashed and burned last night reading through my list of books today. For the books today, this is something that I tried to start reading, but I was too tired to really keep up with it.
All right.
So I intend to read it over the weekend. Al Ewing rose to fame by transforming Marvel's Incredible Hulk into the cosmic horror of Immortal Hulk.
I mean,
And now
some
he's
would argue he
doing
was
that.
doing some good stuff well before that, but sure.
Right. I mean, you were reading him on, what was it, U.S. Avengers?
Yeah, when he was doing he was doing U.S. Avengers, and he was doing some other stuff he was doing. He was also doing Ultimates and a few other things that
Right. Now Al Ewing is taking that into the creator-owned cosmos to hunt down gods with We Only Find Them When They're Dead. The them in the name of in the title refers to gods that the near future Earth Society of 2367 and their multiple discoveries of dead alien gods in space, and the process for harvesting those corpses for resources. But with all that comes with scavenging dead gods, imagine if they were to find one still alive. As I said earlier, We Only Find Them When They're Dead. #1 is out. Is out. It says over here September 25th. We got it already. It's out already.
unless maybe it's not like out, and that's a review copy. That's.
I was about to say there was a copy in my comic book store. Maybe this is an advanced copy too.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, if you saw it in
Maybe
the comic book store,
we might
then
have. I was about to say, so we might actually have some advanced copies of.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So I'm not sure which is the case, but regardless, if it's not out officially, then it's out soon.
Yeah, September 25th, folks.
Yeah. Last but not least, IDW hires Disney publishing exec Nachi Marsham. I apologize if I messed up your name, as new publisher. Disney Publishing Worldwide's executive editor Nachi Marsham is leaving to take over publisher of IDW Publishing. We're honored to have Nachi on board of the IDW ship, as he is a champion for novel storytelling and has an unequaled passion for this industry. IDW CEO Ezra Rosensaft says in the announcement. The publisher role at IDW is described as overseeing quote-unquote strategic business units, integrating product cross-platform programs, establishing product growth initiatives with partners, broadening customer experiences to new platforms, and expanding the company's extensive IP portfolio. So sounds like this is a bit of a do-over, as IDW's previous publisher, which I know we talked about in a previous episode, Judd Myers, was terminated 16 days after being promoted to publishing spot.
Right.
So, and Marsham spent 12 years at Disney Publishing Group, and with the last 7 of those being executive editor, including launching the Marvel Press imprint. He was also from 2001 to 2008 an editor at DC, and prior to that worked at Wizard Entertainment. So, man's got chops. So, I guess congrats to him.
Okay.
That is it, folks, for the news. We can get into an ad read.
Toy Corner today.
Oh, you want to do that before the ad? Okay, sure.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, I'll read the ad real quick.
Yeah.
Let me get to that. Thematically speaking, this fits right in. Our last ad read of the night is for Funko, Fun at First Sight, your home for exclusive collectibles such as their world-famous pop vinyl bobbleheads, apparel, including t-shirts, hats, and socks, and brand merchandise such as custom DIY pop figures, art books, and skateboards. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy 10% off your entire purchase when shopping at Funko. To place your first order with 10% off, and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us. That's cspn.us. Then click on the Keep Our Podcast Free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down to the Funko link and place your order. When you get to the checkout, put in the offer code SHOP10 for your 10% off discount. Funko through cspn.us. Do it today. All right. So just to wrap up this kind of sad week that we've had, we've got a little bit of fun stuff to go over. It's Toy Corner because I've had over the past week and change or so, since the last show even, or since just before the last show even, had some stuff arrive that I had pre-ordered long ago. So I may have mentioned this last week, but I did get the Marvel Legends Moon Knight from Walgreens.
Nice.
Yeah, video.
Oh yeah, you're up front.
There you go. So this is a pretty cool figure. I have not yet opened it. I haven't had time to, but this is a really nice looking figure. It's a classic Moon Knight. It's got two heads, so you can see that there is another head where the mask underneath the hood is darker as opposed to being all white. So that's the front, this is the back. So this is a nice classic looking Moon Knight figure.
Yeah, it is. And if you're not watching the video, you really should sometimes.
Seriously. I picked up actually another one of my pre-orders that came in that I mentioned last week was the Ahsoka figure from Star Wars Black. So I'm happy to have an Ahsoka finally to go with my Sabine Wren. So hopefully Roddykat can get his hands on either this one or the Target one, which was an exclusive, which I really like, and I would love to get.
I totally forgot to go into when I was in the last Inno Target recently. I totally forgot to look, actually. So I'm glad you reminded me. Thank you.
So next up is some old Marvel Legends. I got these stupendously cheap on Amazon, like including tax. It was less than $20 total. These two Smart Hulk Wave figures. I got the Rock Python with one Hulk arm and Union Jack with the other Hulk arm. So now I can build the Smart Hulk from Infinity War and Endgame.
Mm-hmm.
Endgame, really. So it's pretty funny that I finally I finally bowed to the pressure of the completest pressure of only needing two figures and two pieces to complete a Build-A-Figure. So now I've got a Union Jack to build like a pseudo Invaders. So there's that. Speaking of other pre-orders, surprisingly, something that I thought would not come until October, something that came. This is the 3-pack Marvel Legends Psylocke, Nimrod, and Phantomex from Amazon. Right, so you can see the slightly updated Psylocke. You can see the Nimrod, which is what I really want from this 3-pack, and you can see with the reflection of my ring light in the background. But you can see the Phantomex as well in here, and this is a really cool. I never thought I would see a Nimrod figure.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to be sort of like my catch-all Sentinel. Because it's just it's at a scale that's a little easier to work with. It's not like 4 feet tall, or 3 feet tall.
Yes, folks, he didn't cave for the big HasLabs Sentinel like we thought he would.
Right, but if they do a Galactus, forget about it. I'll be one of the first people there. So this is the back of the box. It's pretty cool.
Okay, do you see pictures of the 3 characters?
Right. And ultimately, I'm jazzed. I'm very happy to have a Nimrod figure. Like I said, never thought I would see the day that we would have a Nimrod figure of all things. He's the centerpiece of this particular set. So very happy to have that. And last, but certainly not
gonna lie, that would have made an awesome 2-pack if Phantomex wasn't there.
Was not there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, they've done Phantomex once before in Legends, like early on when Hasbro got the license again. got the license that is from from Marvel for doing Legends. They did a Phantom X relatively early, and this is a redo of the Phantom X. I don't really care for the character. I'm probably gonna repurpose his weapons, for another character maybe. But at the end of the day, it's just another X-Man, that you can just sort of kind of put into any sort of display that you like. But and we don't really need another Psylocke, and I'm not really sure which version this is. I don't know if this is supposed to be Quanon as opposed to Betsy.
Right.
I have to take a look closely at. My understanding is that the skin tone is different from the previous Psylocke, the Jim Lee Psylocke, and that the face is slightly different. So I will have to see if they are noticeably different enough so that you can actually characterize one as being Betsy and the other as being Quanon.
Right. So that picture on the back, is there another head in there for her? Because they seem to have a split between the two.
No, it's just a sword.
Right.
It's just she's holding a sword.
Right, but the way they have it is like, okay, it's like one part is dark, one part is lighter. It's kind of suggesting that it could be the.
From what I can tell, no. I mean,
Okay.
I'll just open this up real quick. I did open this up just to see that nothing was missing from my box. I'll see if there's another head. Nope, no other head.
Yes, because now that there are Instagram accounts that are showcasing terrible,
Right. Well, I mean,
terrible
listen,
returns.
there's a reason why I kind of stopped going to the stores to really look for my figures because people swap those figs at an awful pace. So, last but not least, ooh-wee, I got the retro Spidey wave in full. So, I got the Peter Parker. That's kind of based on the animated series.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so you got the box, the card back that's heavily influenced by the animated series figures that came out back in the day. So you see here that here's a Peter Parker. He's got weird looking glasses and a camera and whatnot.
No, right. He's got the anime glasses.
Right, but he's also got the half Spidey, half Peter Parker head.
Right, for when his spider sense went off during the course of the show.
Exactly. So that's pretty cool. We have a redone Electro. He's got slightly more of a muscle bod than the previous Electro that came out.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So this is a welcome redo. Although, like I said, technically we already had an Electro really recently, but this is much more comic accurate in my mind. Let's see. So there is that. There is another redo. This is a Green Goblin. He's got a Norman Osborn head and really, really bug out eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's got really bug out eyes.
Nice. Over a little bit. Yeah, there you go.
Right. So you see the really bug out eyes?
There we go. Yep.
Oh my gosh, this is really bugged out. Put it in front of the camera. There you go. Look at those bug out eyes. So yeah, it's a character that we've had. I definitely appreciate that this is subtly different. The comic, it's definitely much more faithful to the old comics coloring. It's a lot more bright. In terms of the green on the Green Goblin costume, whereas the green that we got on the last version is a little darker. Next up, shout out to the 90s, Armored Daredevil.
Shadowland, correct?
No, this is pre-Shadowland. Shadowland was black and red. Okay. This is 90s Daredevil when he had armor. This is Scott McDaniel. This is totally 90s where I guess Daredevil decided he needed more of a hardcore suit to go into battle. So he ended up putting some armor on. So
wait, did he get shot and it came to that realization?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't. But like I said, this is the 90s, man. This is a big shoulder pads era, so everyone felt the need to get more armored up.
I think that's something similar happened to Hawkeye, as I remember. So I might be conflating the two.
Right. So we got two left. This is if you follow any toy people on Instagram or websites or even YouTube channels, this is arguably the best Spider-Man figure that's been put out. It's the most posable in terms of Marvel Legends, because there is a Mafex Spider-Man that's more posable, but also costs like $50 more. I think it's like $80 or $90.
Mm.
This is arguably the most posable Spider-Man that's been put out, and it comes with an extra head and hands, and it's super posable. And I see this as dominating all of the action figure photography that's out there that involves Spider-Man nowadays.
Mm.
So good luck finding this. I think this is probably the most popular one that's in stores. But if you can find it, more power to you. The one thing it lacks is wall crawling hands. It has web shooting hands and it has fists, but it does not have wall crawling hands, which kind of sucks.
Mm.
Some of the other Spider-Man figures that have kind of had the rank of most posable have wall crawling hands. That's specifically the pizza Spider-Man that everyone kind of refers to. He came with a slice of pizza.
Right.
So yeah, this is pretty cool. And
Yeah,
last
pretty
but
good.
not least in Toy Corner this week, and I've had, listen, I'm showing a lot of stuff here. I got a lot of stuff via mail order / Amazon / everything. Most of this is Amazon. They are a sponsor, so I don't feel so bad about talking about Amazon. So it is the Gwen Stacy figure.
Huh.
Right?
Okay.
With
Yes.
She comes with an alternate Mary Jane head, which I'm probably not going to use for this figure, but I understand fits very well with the Mary Jane figure that came with the super suit Spider-Man that came out as a 2-pack with the glowy spider symbol that came out during Slot's run.
Okay.
There was a Mary Jane Spider-Man 2-pack that came out. So this head, from what I understand, fits very well on that Mary Jane body, giving her an extra or different hairstyle. But this is a classic Gwen Stacy. God forbid you want to reenact the scene on top of the George Washington Bridge.
Yeah.
This is the figure for that.
I mean, it's the dress and everything, so you just need the webs and the bridge.
Right. So this
or unless
is pretty
you're just
cool.
gonna go straight to her in Spidey's arms, but
Right. So this is pretty cool to have. Pretty cool. So yeah, I definitely had a little bit of Christmas in August / early September, because this, I think some of this stuff did come in yesterday. So yeah, so Christmas in August and early September, late August and early September for me.
Cool. Sounds great. So yeah, I guess you could put that Peter Parker head on the Spider-Man body, like he's about to change.
That's definitely the plan. Definitely the plan. I have seen various action figure photographers who got their hands on these figures a little earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Either they ordered through Entertainment Earth, like other means of ordering their figures, got them maybe 2.5 weeks ago. I've started to already see, these things pop up, let's say beginning of August, so maybe a month ago, right? Some of them had them that early, and we're posting pictures already. But now I've got mine, and I am pretty happy with what I've got.
Sounds good. And we will look forward to seeing more Instagram photos. In fact, wait a minute. Let me flip this back to you real quick, if you would mind, and showing what's behind you real quick.
Sure. So I will get out of the way, but behind me, I've redone my display on my bookshelf of Marvel Legends. I moved the Black Panther display that I had put up only 2 weeks ago, less than 2 weeks ago. I put that front and center and redid it to reflect the passing of Chadwick Boseman, and to do it in his honor, because it only felt right. It only felt appropriate to do so, because it's such a sad time.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely wanted to pay my respects to him and the role, and and place these figures in a really appropriate and mournful arrangement.
Right, and for those not watching the video, he has the Black Panther figure up front with the T'Challa head,
Mhm.
the Dora Milaje on the side, and Nakia's
Let's
in
see,
the back
this is
there.
Nakia, right? This is
Yeah,
Nakia. There's Shuri.
there's Shuri
There's
right beside him. Right,
right. There's Dora Milaje behind them, flanking Okoye, who's directly behind T'Challa, and behind the Dora and behind Okoye is M'Baku.
right. So there you go. But again, if you check out the video sometimes. Yeah,
Right, and
sometimes.
also check out my Instagram at agent_70. I did just post a picture of this very display.
Indeed. So as we close out this, you will hear that again in a second. As we close out the show, thank you each and every one of folks for coming out this week. We'll be back next week with more new releases, more news, and all that kind of good jazz. Maybe it's actually some actual jazz. We don't know. Depends on what happens during the course of the news and the the comic book cycles. Maybe there's a jazz comic book coming out. I doubt it very seriously, but still. Anyway, I have been Roddykat. You can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at News Nerds Need on Twitter. You can also find me at CBCaps on Instagram. Once again, agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram. PC_dirt on Twitter, Pop Culture Net on Twitter, popculturenetwork.com, and all those umbrella sites they're in. And also, actually, we should probably actually check and see if he's actually still doing that stuff. But Byte, the Vine replacement, where he's over there under the name Comic Reviews No Vowels. Tim DOGG98, the Osiris of this ish. You can find him at TimDOGG98 on Twitter. You can find him at CB Cron on Twitter, which is the Comic Book Chronicles Twitter account. Say hey, we'll see it. Hashtag Comic Book Chronicles if you want to, maybe send a question or something along. I actually should probably say that a little bit more. But you can also find Tim, though, at The Click Nation on Twitter. That's The Click Nation, DKLIQNATION. Also, theclicknation.com. But also, and more exclusively, Comic Book Resources, where he's over there writing his face off. And you will be able to find this here podcast on the Coastal Lizard Podcast Network. That's CSPN.us.
Do it today.
You could also find this on your podcast perusal place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Coastal Lizard Podcast Network's SoundCloud page. Again, every Thursday night, 9:30-ish p.m. on the Click Nation's YouTube channel, where you can see this and other other past video shows, with the exception of that one lost one, that so lost one that, boy, I wish wasn't lost. Anyway, yeah, so no sense dwelling on the past, because unlike cable, we can't change it. And yeah, 9:30 p.m. live there, where you can see our glorious faces. Well, Agent 70's glorious faces and my ugly mug. But there every week where we record live, and the audio comes out later on the place where we told you. And with that, folks, this has been the Comic Book Chronicles. Peace.
Peace. One.
Wakanda forever!